thought it was clever because Google's my client. And he said only clever people can have Google. And I thought, I feel so good about myself right now because my son thinks I'm clever.
Yeah. He's like, yo, my mom's clever.
Exactly.
Mom's more clever than your mom. And she's in a band. And she has a podcast. Man, you're killing it. But
the first month?
yeah, what's the first month like? I mean,
Yeah.
did you walk into a client immediately? What's that first moment where you're like, yay, I'm excited, I'm doing this. I got my business card. I've got the energy. Now we're the clients.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I worked hard at when I was working in corporate was I kept my dignity. I developed really strong relationships with other professional services people and clients and organizations.
Mm-hmm.
So when my big client did walk in the door, I was ready to service that large client. I wasn't on my own, and I didn't have to find the money to do things. I had people that were able to help me deliver the best service I could to the client I had, which was at the time was actually Anderson, which is now Accenture.
Wow.
Yeah, so they were my first large client. I did a really exciting project with them, and I had one of my best printers printing the book that I needed after I designed it. I had one of my best writers help me write and edit it. I had one of the best artist representatives in the country help me locate and source one of the best artists that I hired to do the work for the book I produced. And these are all relationships that I cultivated in the corporate sector. So one of the things I tell young people that are trying to decide whether they should go from college to entrepreneur or college to corporate, even though I did my time in corporate, I think that experience helped me develop some skills and chops and relationships that I wouldn't have been able to get on my own as quickly as I did. I learned how to walk the walk and talk the talk in corporate, and it positioned me very strongly to be, a solid, strong business owner when I hit the ground on my own. The first month was exciting for me. It was probably a little more nerve-wracking for my family. They weren't sure exactly what had come over me because, as I was talking earlier to one of my friends, your family expects you to be on a corporate plantation your entire life because that's the world they know. Mm-hmm. And there's no other world because the idea that, you would go from job to job when I opened my company was horrifying. Nowadays it's very different. I mean, people expect you to have multiple jobs because you can't learn everything you need to learn on one job. And nowadays, people don't want you to learn one thing on one job because when you take one job and you sit there and do the one job forever, you're setting yourself up for not being able to grow into another job or even decide to open your own company one day because you're so laned into one thing. But I never did that. So when I was out my first month, I was fortunate. I had a client, and it was a very good paying client that respected me, in my opinion. It did happen to be a woman that hired me for the work. She had a family before I had. So there was sort of that a little bit of familiarity with starting out. She had more empathy for what I needed to do. And she remembered me, from when we worked together when I was at Anderson. So that was helpful, too. There was already sort of an existing relationship. So I will suggest that it is helpful to have some kind of connection that you can take away from the job you leave to open your own company. But if you decide to start on your own, it's not impossible. It's going to take you a lot longer. It's just going to take you longer to, develop relationships and to build up your business because you're going to have to build a new network.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you're pivoting careers.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. I mean, if you're changing careers, that's quite different. Yeah. I tried. I mean, when I left my corporate job and I started my own company, I also launched a band, and that was a new thing for me. And my husband and I, have since produced 3 records, working on our 4th album. But, we were making all kinds of decisions to try to figure out how to get the band to life. And that was a complete pivot as well. Although the marketing side of my business really helped, bring the band to life. Oh yeah. As a business, I was able to make the band like a business in terms of the, the paperwork and the financial aspects of it, things like that. But yeah, there is something to be said about when you have to make a career change. If you're making a career change and you're starting a new business, that's really scary. So, I mean, I guess in that context, I wasn't that brave at all because, I was kind of continuing on with what I had already done. I was just doing it on my own instead of having a large brand with, you know, 20,000 employees around the
Mm-hmm.
world helping me do my job. I mean, opening your own company, you don't have 20,000 people doing your job for you. So you know, you're starting to figure out like I don't have all these
A
people doing
machine.
this stuff. I have no machine behind me. It's just me out here.
Yeah. You,
That's why entrepreneurship is tough.
yeah, you said two things that really jumped out at me. The first thing you said was about the relationships you built and how you were able to use them strategically and you know gather them around you to make sure that you were able to bring your first opportunity to fruition. And then the second thing you said was about corporate plantations. But let's talk about relationships first, because
Mm-hmm.
relationships are really really important. The power of networking and who you know and who's able to see your talent is really important when it comes to getting the wheels turning. How have you seen the relationship landscape change? Because you're a relationship person. So talk to me a little bit about, you know, the way that you build relationships now versus how you built them then, and how someone who's starting out right now can utilize some of those tactics to build relationships.
Well, you know, relationships are important no matter how you're developing or cultivating them, whether they're happening online or in person. When I started my business, there was a lot of handshakes, and I'd make a phone call and I'd get a meeting and I'd close the deal. You know, I get to meet people, and there was less aversion to risk, there was less fear, and I certainly don't feel that when I opened up, you had to have such a long lane to meet the right people. You know, um, you didn't have to establish your credibility so quickly and so fast. I mean, people had a little bit different level of trust in hiring you.
You're saying there's less trust now.
I think there's less trust because there's so much confusion that people just don't know what they're buying half the time, or they don't know who you are, or you could be anybody. I just think there's been a change in that space.
You think that's because of the internet?
I think possibly. I'm not exactly. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to why when I started my business, I could make a phone call and get an appointment with a chief executive officer. Whereas now, for me to get an appointment with a chief executive officer, I have to network. I have to go to events. I have to have things on my resume and my LinkedIn profile.